All right, let's talk about what makes a scary story really work. I'm not talking about cheap jump scares. I'm talking about the kind of story that gets deep under your skin and stays there. We're going to dissect the architecture of fear itself. So, what is it that makes a story truly, genuinely terrifying?
You know that feeling, right? When a story just sticks with you? It has you looking over your shoulder for days, while other spooky tales you just forget instantly. It's a great question, and as we're about to find out, the answer isn't some kind of magic.
Exactly. It's a craft, a skill. And like any good craft, you can take it apart to see how all the pieces fit together. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to break down an animated horror story to figure out the exact tools a storyteller uses to build that creeping, awful sense of dread. Okay, so every great scary story needs a solid foundation. And one of the strongest you can build is making your character, and by extension, us, the audience, feel completely and utterly alone. Let's see how our case study does this right out of the gate. So, boom, right away, the scene is set. Our main character is a student, burning the midnight oil in the library. But it's 10 p.m. The place is empty. The entire world just goes silent. Now, that's not just some random background detail. That is the first brick being pulled from their wall of safety. And that's the secret sauce of isolation, isn't it? When you're all by yourself, the stakes just skyrocket. Who are you going to call for help? Who's there to say, no, you didn't really see that? That silence, it's not calming. It's a void, and your brain is just waiting for something terrible to fill it. Okay, so you've got your character isolated. Now what? Well, the next step is to introduce something that just doesn't belong, something that shatters that quiet. And this, my friends, is where the suspense really begins to build. And see how it's done here? It's subtle. First, it's just a sound, a limp. It's unsettling, sure, but maybe you could explain it. Then, a quick glance, a woman standing way down the hall. And then, poof, she's gone. The story isn't throwing a monster at you yet. It's much smarter than that. It's making you ask, is this real, or is our hero just totally exhausted? And that is the absolute power of ambiguity. Our brains hate not knowing things. We have to fill in the blanks. And when we're already on edge from a scary story, we fill those blanks with the worst things we can possibly imagine. The storyteller doesn't even have to do the heavy lifting. They let your own mind become the monster. Ooh, and this is a classic horror move. A shadow with nothing casting it. It's such a clear, undeniable sign that the normal rules of reality are starting to break down. There's no more question about it. Something is wrong, something is close, and it's getting closer. This is where that feeling of dread really starts to harden into something solid. You know, this shadow is just textbook foreshadowing. It's basically a promise from the storyteller to us. It's saying, that bad feeling you've had this whole time, you were right. And the confrontation is coming. It is an expert way to just crank the tension knob all the way up. Which, of course, brings us to the moment we've been waiting for, the confrontation. The slow burn is over. Now we get to come face to face with whatever has been lurking in the dark. But a truly great horror story doesn't just show you a monster. It shows you something that is deeply, psychologically unsettling. And the description here is everything. It's not a demon with fangs, it's a woman. But every single detail about her is just wrong. The twisted limbs, that troubled walk, the dirty clothes. Our main character's gut reaction says it all. Stay away from this thing. There's actually a term for this, the uncanny. Basically, our brains are hardwired for pattern recognition. We just know what a person should look like, how they should move. The uncanny is that deeply uncomfortable feeling we get when that pattern is broken. A mannequin that moves just a little, or a woman who looks human but is so fundamentally off that she triggers a primal danger alarm deep inside your brain. And then comes this question. In any other situation, it's a normal, maybe even sad thing to ask. But coming from this uncanny figure in the dead of night on an empty street, it's absolutely horrifying. It immediately shifts the threat from physical to psychological. What does she want? Why is she asking me? The horror just became deeply personal and deeply strange. So after all that suspense and that super creepy confrontation, a great story has to deliver a payoff. It needs to give us an explanation, a reason for the horror we just went through. It's time for the reveal. This is the climax of the action. The student runs for their life, and we hear that final chilling scream from the distance. She is here! It is the absolute peak of the terror. and it leaves us hanging right before everything goes blark. But the story's not over. We still need to know why. And here it is. The reason. The legend of Agatha. It turns out, it's a simple, awful tragedy. She was a mother whose young daughter died in an accident at that very school. Agatha was so overwhelmed by grief that she died too. And now her spirit just roams the area searching for her lost child forever. You see, this reveal is so important because it transforms the monster into a character. The uncanny woman isn't just some random evil spirit. She's a grieving mother. This doesn't make her any less scary, but it adds this powerful layer of tragedy that makes the story resonate and it makes it stick with you. So what's the big takeaway here? By breaking this story down piece by piece, we've basically reverse-engineered a powerful recipe for crafting horror. Let's recap those key ingredients. First, you start with isolation to make your character completely vulnerable. Then, you build suspense using things like ambiguity and foreshadowing, letting the audience's own mind do the scary work. Next, you introduce the uncanny, something familiar but deeply wrong, to create that psychological discomfort. And finally, you deliver the reveal, a satisfying backstory that gives the horror real weight and meaning. And here's the really cool part. This framework isn't just for this one animated story. You're going to start seeing it everywhere, from classic movies to modern scary books. So the next time you settle in to watch something spooky, keep an eye out for these ingredients. It might not make it any less frightening, but you'll have a brand new appreciation for the craft behind the chills.